Dr. MICHIO KAKU is an internationally recognized authority in theoretical physics and also the environment. He holds a professorship in theoretical physics at the City College and the Graduate Center of the City University of New York. His goal has been to help complete Einstein's dream of a theory of just about everything, a single equation, perhaps no more than an inch long, which will unify all the fundamental forces in the universe. He has lectured around the world, and his PhD-level textbooks are required reading at many of the top physics laboratories. He has written 9 books. His last 2 we're going to chat about tonight, Hyperspace and Visions, became international bestsellers and have been widely translated into different languages. He hosts a weekly-long, hour-long radio program on science and several radio stations around the country. His commentaries on science can be heard on 60 stations nationwide. Dr. KAKU graduated from Harvard in 1968, summa cum laude, and a number 1 in his physics class. He received a PhD from the University of California, Berkeley Radiation Laboratory in 1972, and he held lectureships at Princeton University in 1973. He then joined the faculty at the City University of New York, where he has been a professor of theoretical physics for 25 years now. He's been a visiting professor at the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton and also New York University, and has published more than 70 physics articles in physics journals, which include superstring theory, supergravity, supersymmetry, and hadronic physics. He is the co-founder of string field theory. He also wrote the first paper on conformal supergravity and the breakdown of supersymmetry at very high temperatures. Welcome to Coast to Coast. Hello, Dr. KAKU. How are you?
Very good, George.
Welcome.
Glad to be on the show.
My pleasure. Boy, if you have a chance Friday night, Art returns to fill in, and what a night that will be.
Ah, I see. So Art's going to be back for a day.
He will be back, and time permitting, whenever I take a little time off every once in a while, Doctor, he'll pop back in and keep his fingers in the pie, so to speak.
Right.
Hey, I have had a chance to hear you and Art over the years, and without a doubt, you're one of Art's most favorite guests. And this is a delight for me tonight to chat with you, just about so many different things that are out there. We just had a couple calls. I wanted to get into this with you before we talk about some of these other issues. Somebody called and said that his father, several years ago, was in a military plane that kind of approached a black cloud in the sky. He said while he was in that cloud and slowly coming out of it again, he saw old World War II German fighter planes all around him. And, of course, they weren't old when he saw them. They looked, lifelike and very timely. And then the cloud came back in again, and he somehow flew out of it, and they were gone. However, he did have some bullet damage to his plane. They fired on him. Today he calls back on the show and says that the father has a copy of the report from the German base where these pilots, when they landed in the 40s, reported seeing a very strange aircraft with an American insignia on it. Now, isn't that an incredible story?
Well, it's a strange story. Steven Spielberg would probably make hay out of it, right?
He probably would. Is that kind of time travel possible?
Well, in principle, it may be possible to bend time into a pretzel. This is something that we physicists are very actively looking at right now. We physicists are split on the question. You know, some of us think that it is possible. Some of us think that it isn't possible. But the bottleneck is energy. You would have to have enormous quantities of energy, something called the Planck energy. And the Planck energy is a fantastic energy at which space and time become unstable. In fact, little bubbles will form if you could reach the Planck energy. And these bubbles could be wormholes or gateways, perhaps, to other universes or different spaces and times. Stephen Hawking, for example, calls it quantum foam, the fact that at very tiny distances and at fantastic energies, space and time become foamy. Little bubbles form out of nothing, like boiling water. Little baby universes, as Stephen Hawking calls them, okay?
Yeah.
However, I should point out that, again, we're talking about fantastic energies that are beyond our civilization. So it would take what we physicists call a type 3 civilization before you could play with these things. And for a type 3 civilization, by definition, you would have energies exceeding that of the Planck energy, in which case something like this, in principle, could be a plaything. But for us, it's really a stretch.
Would we ever get to the point where we can create or build some kind of machinery that could help generate this?
Well, don't expect that anyone in their backyard is going to invent anything like this anytime soon. However, like I say, sooner or later, our civilization may attain Type 2, Type 3 status. And at that point, we are talking about stellar and galactic energies that may be harnessed in somebody's super backyard. And at that point, we are talking about being able to destabilize space and time. It's not for us. However, in outer space, it's conceivable that civilizations have already done this. We are talking about a civilization maybe 100,000 years, 1 million years ahead of ours. But in outer space, that could be simply the twinkling of an eye. What is 1 million years when we talk about the billions of years that the universe has been around?
It's nothing but a mere dot on the end of a sentence, probably.
That's right. And there are so many stars out there, and there's so many galaxies out there, and the universe is a hell of a lot bigger than anyone ever expected, especially if you believe in what is called the inflationary universe. And so it is definitely conceivable that there are old civilizations out there, civilizations much older than ours, that exists in different parts of our own galaxy, for example.
You don't think these civilizations all get to a point where they wipe out each other or they use up all their natural resources, that there comes a finite point to civilization, no matter where it might be? Or do you think they get to a point where they learn how to evolve and grow beyond that?
Well, as long as there is energy, there is hope. And when we look in the heavens, we see planets, stars, and galaxies as sources of energy. And therefore, there are Type 1, Type 2, and Type 3 civilizations. So as long as there's a spark of energy, there is the hope that civilizations can harness and tame this energy. And when you talk about the rapacious and very volatile passions that are aroused in the history of humanity with wars and destructions and things like that, realize that these civilizations are old. They've had thousands of years in which to work out fundamentalist, racial, nationalistic passions. And we are quite young on this scale. We're Type 0. We hardly rate on this cosmic scale.
We're not even a blip on the old equipment, are we?
That's right. And that's why we are still riddled with all the savagery of the swamp. Because we just came out of the swamp in a twinkling of an eye. And these civilizations, which are much older than ours, would have had centuries, millennia, in which to weed out the sectarian, nationalistic passions that have so typified the history of humanity for the last several centuries. So that's why I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that these old civilizations have already mastered their own demons, and that they are able to progress to stellar and even galactic sources of energy, and maybe even at some point to attain what we call Type 4 status, which is near godlike powers, powers even beyond galactic.
You don't get much higher than that, do you?
That's right.
If we were looking at a graph in terms of where our civilization is in terms of brain power and things that we've learned over the last couple thousand years, where would we be on the graph right now, and how high up do you think it can get in maybe the next 100 years?
Well, realize that sitting on your shoulder is the most complex object created by Mother Nature to within 4 light years of the planet Earth, out to the nearest star. You have to go to Alpha Centauri, perhaps, to find an object more complex than the human brain. So that's how complex we are. Our own brain is the most complex object that nature has created out to the nearest star. However, once we start to go beyond the nearest star, then we begin to realize that there could be intelligences far more advanced than anything we have created. So we're just babies. We hardly even rate on the scale of energy production in terms of what is possible out there. And so I think that, assuming that we don't blow ourselves up, we will witness our transition within 100, 200 years to a Type 1 civilization, a planetary civilization.